My friends, the Detroit Lions are entering a fascinating stretch of their season, and right now it feels like this team is standing at a crossroad between recovery and revelation. On one hand, the injury updates this week brought a much-needed wave of optimism, and on the other, a few reminders that nothing in this league ever comes easy. Let's start with what every Lions fan wants to hear first, the good news. Miles Frazier, the rookie right guard out of LSU, is officially working his way back. Remember him? Number 70, the fifth-round steal who went down early and kind of faded from our radar as the weeks piled up. But he's back in the mix now, and people inside the building have had nothing but great things to say about his condition, his mindset, and the work he's been putting in behind the scenes. So if you're fired up about this team's fight and the energy building in Allen Park, don't forget to smash that like button. It helps a ton. And drop a comment below with Go Lions. I believe this is huge, not just because of what Frazier brings as a player, but because of what he represents, another young piece ready to step into the trenches when the Lions need it most. His college resume tells you everything about his consistency and toughness. 54 eligible starts, 50 of them played, all across the offensive line, right guard, left tackle, left guard, right tackle. That's versatility at its best. He allowed 0 sacks during his final season at LSU, and only 4 total across more than 1,500 pass blocking snaps in his career. 4. That's elite-level protection. And when you consider how battered Detroit's offensive line has been this season, the timing couldn't be better. But of course, it wouldn't be Lions news without a little bit of frustration in the mix. The team didn't open DJ Reed's 21-day window yet, which means he's still at least 3 weeks away, probably putting his return right around or just after Thanksgiving. That one stings. Same story with Mahogany, who's officially on IR and done for the year. Still, there's more good sprinkled in there. Khalil Dorsey is eligible to come back anytime, and Giovanni Manu, another depth piece we can't overlook, isn't dealing with a season-ending injury after all. Dan Campbell himself confirmed the expectation is that Manu will return at some point, so while the list of names may look long, not all of them are as dire as they sound. Now, when it comes to the current injury report, there's actually a lot to feel positive about. Kirby Joseph and Pat O'Connor are out, sure, but the bigger picture is improving fast. Taylor Decker's back on the field in some capacity, Josh Paschal has logged limited practice, and yes, even Miles Frazier is practicing. Penny Sewell looks good to go, and Malcolm Rodriguez is back in the mix. Terry Arnold, full practice. Just seeing those names together again feels like exhaling after weeks of tension. The offensive line has taken hits all season long, but if there's ever a time to stabilize, this is it. Still, here's where things get complicated. The inconsistency of this Lions team lately is enough to drive fans crazy. The start of the year promised something dominant, a continuation of the energy we saw last season, but then that Week 1 loss to Green Bay came like a punch in the gut. You wait 9 months for football to return, you get all hyped for a divisional road game, and then the offense just collapses out of the gate. Brutal. But then they responded, right? They took care of Chicago, and then absolutely dismantled Baltimore on Monday Night Football, a statement win that had the entire league paying attention. And then, back down the roller coaster. Cleveland, dominant. Cincinnati, dominant. Then Kansas City hit like a wall. Tampa Bay, back up again. Minnesota, another crash landing. That's the pattern that has everyone wondering what this team really is right now. Are they still the juggernaut we thought they were in October? Or are they slipping into something less stable, a group that looks great on paper but can't always deliver when it matters? It's been an emotional ride. The Kansas City loss was ugly, but at least it came against a powerhouse. The Minnesota loss, though, was something else entirely, a messy game from start to finish, plagued by mistakes on both sides of the ball. Special teams breakdowns, turnovers, miscommunications. David Montgomery's fumble summed it all up, self-inflicted wounds that turned winnable moments into wasted ones. That's why this upcoming stretch matters so much. The Lions can't afford another bad game right now, not with what's coming. A trip to Washington, even without Jaden Daniels on the other side, isn't a freebie. This is the NFL. You don't take anyone lightly, especially on the road. Then it's Sunday night in Philadelphia, under the lights, national audience, the kind of game that shapes how the country sees you. And here's the truth, nobody really knows what to expect from that matchup. The Eagles are talented but inconsistent, the Lions, the same. It's easy to imagine Detroit coming out sharp, controlling the tempo, and walking away with a statement win. But it's just as easy to picture another frustrating night where they let it slip away because of small, correctable mistakes. Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson have built a system that can dominate when it's clicking, but right now, it's the one that's the problem. The offense has to rediscover its rhythm, its aggression, its identity. Johnson has talked before about tempo being the key, and he's right. Every time this team feels stuck, the answer seems to be the same: Speed things up, simplify the play calling, stop overcomplicating it with motion and trick looks. When the Lions line up and play their brand of football, tough, balanced, straight ahead, they can hang with anyone in the league. But when they start trying to outsmart everyone instead of outplaying them, things unravel fast. The defense, for its part, has held up better than people realize. They're not the problem. The real issue has been consistency, both in execution and in decision-making. There have been too many plays, too many moments where the offense seems one step behind the defense. You can live with 6 of those a game. You can't have 17. The Lions have been living too close to that edge lately. And that brings us to the bigger question, the one that every Detroit fan is wrestling with right now. What exactly is this team at this stage of the season? Still elite, just temporarily off balance? Or a good team struggling to find its way in a brutal schedule? Because make no mistake, the next few weeks are going to tell us everything we need to know. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you still believe this team has the dominance and confidence to take control again? Or are we watching the start of a regression that could derail everything they've built? Because if we're being honest, it feels like the Detroit Lions are standing on that thin line between being a top contender and becoming just another almost team. And that's what makes this stretch of the season so defining. You can sense it in every conversation, every press conference, every whisper around Allen Park. Nobody's panicking, but everyone knows this is where things either come together or fall apart. The confidence in the locker room hasn't disappeared, but it's been tested. You can tell the players feel the weight of expectation now in a way they didn't before. That underdog mentality, the one that fueled this rise under Dan Campbell, doesn't hit the same when you're the team everyone expects to beat up opponents. And maybe that's part of what's happening. This team is learning how to carry the burden of being a favorite, how to win not just with emotion but with precision. It's easy to point to play calling or mistakes and forget the psychological side of it. When you dominate teams like Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, it becomes second nature to think you'll just keep rolling. But this league humbles you fast. Kansas City reminded Detroit of that. Minnesota slammed the point home. You could see it in Jared Goff's body language during those games. Not panic, but hesitation. The rhythm that once made this offense flow has turned into hesitation, checkdowns, and drives that stall too early. Goff doesn't look broken. He looks human. And right now, he needs his offensive line to make him feel like himself again. That's where guys like Miles Frazier coming back really matter. People forget how fragile offensive chemistry can be. It's not just talent, it's trust. Every time the pocket collapses, every time a block is missed, it changes how a quarterback feels the game. Getting Decker back, getting Sewell fully healthy, and integrating Frazier even in limited snaps could completely stabilize this group. And when that line gets right, everything changes. Montgomery finds his rhythm again, Gibbs starts breaking free, and suddenly the play action works the way it's designed to. Now, if we zoom out a little, the schedule ahead doesn't do Detroit any favors. Washington is the definition of a trap game, wounded team, unpredictable environment, and absolutely nothing to lose. Then comes Philadelphia, where every mistake gets amplified in front of a national audience. After that, New York, Green Bay on Thanksgiving, Dallas on a short week, then a cross-country trip to face the Rams. It's a gauntlet. This is where championship teams separate themselves from the rest. You can't drop the games you're supposed to win, and you've got to steal at least one that looks tough on paper. And the Lions can absolutely do that, but only if they clean up the little things. Too many penalties. Too many empty drives where the tempo vanishes. Too many moments where the offense feels reactive instead of aggressive. Ben Johnson's system works when the Lions dictate pace, when defenses can't settle in and start guessing. The energy needs to come back, and it starts with tempo, it starts with Goff commanding the offense, and it starts with Campbell trusting his guys to play their brand of football. Defensively, there's still plenty to like. The line has continued to bring pressure, the tackling has improved, and the secondary, despite being banged up, has held its own. But you can only hold the line so long when the offense keeps giving the ball back. That's been the quiet frustration brewing inside this locker room. The defense is doing enough to win. The offense just isn't rewarding that effort. If Detroit handles Washington the way they should, it sets the stage for something massive in Philadelphia, a primetime showcase where the Lions can remind everyone that they belong among the elite. But if they stumble again, those questions about identity will grow louder. Fans will start to wonder whether this team is built to handle adversity when it truly hits. Because let's face it, the hype has been sky high for 2 straight years. At some point, you have to validate it with wins that matter in November and December, not just flashes in September. You look at this roster, and it's hard not to believe. The talent is there. The leadership is there. The coaching staff has proven it can develop players and adjust when things go wrong. But this stretch, right now, is where we find out if they can evolve. If they can take the punches, fix the flaws, and still finish the fight standing tall. There's a quiet confidence inside this building that they can. Nobody's running from the criticism. Nobody's blaming injuries or bad luck. It's more of a collective acknowledgement. We haven't been ourselves, but we know what we're capable of. And maybe, just maybe, that realization is exactly what this team needed. Because when the Lions are playing with urgency, when they're moving fast, when that offensive line sets the tone and the crowd starts to feel it, there aren't many teams in football that can stop them. That's the version everyone in Detroit wants to see again. The one that doesn't just win games but imposes its will doing it. So the question now becomes simple. Will they find that version again when it matters most? Will the Lions rediscover that relentless identity before this schedule tests them beyond repair? Or will this season turn into another story of what could have been? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Does this team still have the fire to finish strong? Or are the warning signs too real to ignore? And if you enjoyed the breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more Lions coverage every week, and stay tuned. The next video is already on the screen, and you won't want to miss it, because make no mistake, this next stretch is where the Detroit Lions define who they truly are. Every team in the NFL faces that moment when excuses no longer hold weight, when potential and hype have to finally translate into results. For Detroit, that time is right now. The talk about identity, the conversations about execution, the debates about whether this team is elite or just good, all of it is going to be answered on the field, one way or another. Let's be clear, this is not a team in crisis. It's a team caught between what it was and what it's trying to become. You can feel it in how Dan Campbell talks. He's not angry, he's not desperate, but he's sharper. There's a certain edge in his tone, a sense that he knows the margin for error is closing fast. And the players feel that too. Jared Goff, Aiden Hutchinson, Frank Ragnow, these guys aren't just voices in the locker room anymore. They're the backbone of a roster that's